This NBC HD News special presentation is proudly sponsored by Better Living Incorporated, Charlottesville Gas, Window World, and the Chandler Law Group.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for this NBC 29 special presentation, A Capitol Conversation. I'm Adam Rue. Throughout Virginia's 233-year history, there have been just 70 governors of the Commonwealth. And in less than a month, we'll head to the polls to pick number 71. It's an exclusive club, a job that comes with immense challenges and great rewards. During the next half hour, you'll get to hear what it's like to hold Virginia's highest office from 5 men who know firsthand. I had the honor of spending time with former governors Linwood Holton, Doug Wilder, George Allen, and Jim Gilmore, plus current Governor Tim Kaine, inside the North Ballroom of the Executive Mansion in Richmond. We started our conversation with a look back at campaigning for governor and what these men would do differently.
I think all of us have done pretty much the same thing. Obviously, my campaign, a great deal of the focus was on the history-making aspects of it. I was continuing to try to focus on issues, and I think that's still what we should do more so today. On the other hand, I enjoyed going to see people, and all of us hated to get on the phone and raise money and calling up and begging and asking and cajoling and doing those kinds of things. If I could have spent more time actually with the people and young people to energize more of them to become involved in the electoral process is something I would like to have done more of, but they weren't able to vote at that time. 18 had been somewhat of a disappointment when that registration effort was to bring so many people to the polls. But I really enjoyed meeting Virginia's people. It's a very unique state. There are very few places like Virginia. People talk differently, they dress differently, but they have the same common values, and they share them. And I think I would like to have seen more opportunities for Virginians to know more of each other. I would have liked to have had a campaign to do more of educating Virginians about Virginia.
Governor Allen.
Well, I was happy with the results. I think all of us, if you ran a campaign, if you asked me about a more recent campaign, yeah, I would have liked to see a lot of things handled differently and covered differently. As far as 1993's campaign, we started off so far behind. We're 31% behind, no money, and so forth. So yeah, the groveling, we were happy to get $25 contributions in our campaign. But what I liked best about our campaign, and Governor Wilder mentioned this, is we did run it on issues. How we're going to reform welfare, education, economic development, the criminal justice system. And when you run on ideas and issues, and if you're given the honor and responsibility of serving as governor, that really helps you get those ideas through the legislature.
Governor Gilmore.
The race, I think if I had to learn one thing from that race, it's this. We all sometimes think we're so smart about how we're going to define issues and what things we're going to put forward and so on like that. And certainly the car tax cut became the dominant issue, of the overpowering issue of the campaign, and swept us into the election. But I think that it's more about what the people were concerned about at the time. It wouldn't have been the dominant issue but for the fact that the public themselves picked it up and ran with it and decided that having more of their own money back in their pockets to define their own lives was in fact in tune with the public at that time. And I think that's the lesson that I've learned over the years. It isn't how smart politicians are. It's whether or not you can get in tune with the mood of the people at that moment in time, and I think we were able to do that in that campaign.
Governor Kaine.
In terms of doing things differently, the one thing I would say, and this might be an encouragement to candidates, we ran on issues, we ran on character, very positive campaign. I did run one ad that would be a negative ad that I wish I hadn't run, and I remembered running it. I was getting really attacked by all kinds of negative ads, and I felt like I got to push back, and I ran one. And you know what? It would be the one thing, if I were going to do it differently, I would not have run that ad. And after it was up on TV for a couple of days, I said, you know what? This ain't helping us. Let's pull that down. Candidates, be true to yourself. You get a lot of people around you telling everything to do, and obviously you're paying for good advice and you need to listen to advice, but the most important thing is be true to yourself. And generally I feel really good about that. But if I could do something different, that would be what I would do differently.
I heard several of you mention the word underdog. I'm just curious, and anybody can jump in at this point. Is it better to be the underdog this far out? Here we are a little bit over 2 months before the election. Is it better to be the underdog, or is it better to have that top spot in the polls?
I never had the top spot.
What is the top spot?
So I think there is a sentiment of the public that subliminally pulls for an underdog, maybe. If you can tap into that, it's great. If you can't, being an underdog doesn't help you at all.
Yeah, the underdog, I agree again with Governor Wilder. Depending on the sentiments of the people, right now, actually in the last several election cycles, the underdogs, because people want to change. If they want change, if you're an underdog, you can catch that prevailing wind sometimes with it. The main difficulty, some of them are talking about raising money. When you're an underdog and you're way behind, it is really hard to raise money. And I remember, gosh, we'd be having hot dog weenie roast, on the Pulaski County Courthouse green, and my opponent was having a big fancy event up in Washington, D.C. in the Clinton mansion. Of course, we made that a big issue. I'd rather be eating hot dogs with y'all here in Pulaski County than sipping wine and nibbling cheese at the Clinton mansion in Washington, D.C. So, I mean, that's how you get that underdog uprising feeling to it. Now, it's interesting, as you get closer to elections and it gets closer in the polls, all of a sudden people who had maybe contributed to your opponent all of a sudden start writing you checks. And so, when you're up in the polls, it's easier to raise money, which all of us, I think, agree on a bipartisan basis. The groveling and begging for money is the part that I think all of us like the very least. What we do like is meeting people, talking about ideas, and hearing their views.
Well, I agree with that, but I want to underscore that, because I just ran a race that I didn't win. And when you start behind as the underdog, you have to have the money in order to be able to catch up in the polls and get your name out and make that race closer so that people will in fact begin to contribute. And I think that it's somewhat of a problem today. As we grow more and more into a media society, more and more TV outlets, more and more radio, more and more information going out there, money becomes king. You have to be able to, they don't give it to you, you have to buy that. And that means that the business community has got to get behind you. If you're behind in the polls, they will not. I don't know what the best solution to that is. I wish that we could encourage the regular American citizen out there, the regular Virginian, to really get involved in a campaign by writing a $25 check or a $50 check. And I think that might level the playing field, but that is something in the future.
Just to show how times have changed on this, when I ran in 2005, the total amount that I raised for my campaign was $26 million. Lynn, when you ran in 1965, how much did you spend?
$800,000, and that's all.
Yeah.
And I did not do any of the money raising.
And when I said I was going to run for lieutenant governor, Lynn says, well, you can just appoint a finance committee and they'll raise all the money for you. And I had to say, I don't think that's how it works these days.
Coming up in our Capitol conversation, what the governors have to say about Facebook and Twitter. The answers might surprise you.